after we talk about the guidelines, the actual mechanics of what we're gonna do. So you are representing God first of all, but you also are representing ICT. So when we deal with people, we want to establish and maintain an appropriate professional relationship with those we serve. So we're not there to be their best buddy. And we need to be careful about the intimacy because there is a danger there as far as being a professional, ethically appropriate relationship. Okay. We're looking for the best interest of the people we serve. So very many times we're trying to help them do what we know is right, but we can't manipulate or we can't force them to do the right thing. We present the information, we tell them how this is going to help them, but sometimes, like if it's a pastor or a spiritual counselor or even a parent, we kind of strong arm people to make the right choices, and that's not what we can do as we should do as a chaplain. And if you go to any kind of professional therapist, they present the information and they try not to tell you what to do. Okay, we would obviously point them in the best serving direction for the best choice, but ultimately they have to make the choice, because if they don't make the choices to do the things to resolve their situation, it will backfire. They will blame us. They will tell us they were pushed, or they won't make the effort to do what they need to do to get out of their situation. And also, we find that in the world, and it even happens in the body of Christ, we can violate their personal integrity or exploit them for our religious programs, emotionally, financially, or even sexually. We're human beings, and we need to guard against that. We need to maintain confidentiality in the communication that we receive, because they trust us. And if we don't have that trusting relationship, then they can't confide in us. And when we first meet people, if we haven't known them for a while, it often takes a certain amount of time of getting together for them to be able to open up and give us all the facts. Because when you're dealing with somebody, usually we give out our side of the story, but every person sees the situation through their own eyes, and there is a broader picture. So we also need to try to get the broad picture of the situations and their what they're saying, and in order to have appropriate information to help them. Okay, if we are working with an organization and not independently, we need to follow the rules of the organization we represent and endeavor to enrich the communities in which we serve. If they have a certain type of dress code, then we need to follow the dress code. If there's certain procedures that they want you to follow, we have stepped into their domain, and we need to respect those type of requirements. And often when we go into an institution, it may violate their permissiveness, or their restrictions may be uncomfortable to us, but we have offered our services under their banner, so we need to respect that and follow their rules. Also, we are here to help protect you for being vulnerable. We are here to help stretch you so that you can be better as a Christian and as an ambassador for Christ. So we have a certain code of ethics that I think you already kind of, that may not directly have been stated, but certain behavior that we expect of you, a way of talking, a way of conducting yourselves. So you are accountable to us for your actions, and that's a safeguard, right? We have an advisory board here that you will meet with to get an interview with when it's time for your to receive your certificate, and they'll give you an approval, just an interview. But they're also there to make sure that I'm conducting myself in an upright, godly manner. Okay. And it may be necessary, and it has been necessary in the past, for someone to be suspended for a personal amount of time to be restored. And that happens in ministry and the body of Christ. And so we need to be humble and receive correction when we need it. We need to be humble and present our weaknesses so that we can build each other up and help each other be strong and maintain that testimony of Jesus Christ. Okay. So we all come from different backgrounds, and although we have the Bible as a guideline, and the ICT tenets of faith are basically the Nicene Creed, which we've talked about, and which were expounded on greatly in the Chuck Colson book, The Faith. That's what we have as a common ground between Christian denominations and churches. But we also have our churches and our background. We have different ideas and Christian values that we operate out of. And as we worship and live our lives, we have an expression of those Christian values. So that's what our basis for fellowshipping and ministering. But we're different. There's different churches that have different traditions, some different teachings, but we have a basic foundation. So we're trying to have a harmony and a respect for each other, because we have different ideas, even about some of the just ethical things, right? But we want to have a respect and a fellowship around those values. But we'll be running into people that don't have the same core beliefs, or they don't express their beliefs in the same way, whether in worship or in a religion or in organizations. So we need to understand that these people are different from us, and we have to value their right to believe what they believe, whether it's biblical or not, and respect them. Now, in here it says, recognize the value, quality, diversity, importance of the people we serve. Since this manual is written, the word diversity has taken on a very negative context, right? But realizing that we're here to love and help people, even if we're uncomfortable around them, how they look or what they believe, their morals. It doesn't matter if they're male or female or identify as something else. They're people that we are reaching out for God. And it's difficult sometimes when we're not used to people and the way they live and express themselves or look, to remember that we love them with the love of God, and they each need that help regardless of whether they are thieves, drug addicts, homosexuals, whatever their ethnic background or religion or social status, right? When you go to certain parts of the country, they might have a more limited ethnic background, and they're not used to different ways or different races. So when we're unfamiliar, sometimes we're uncomfortable. And so God is stretching us. I became aware recently, periodically, of how I'm limited as a human being in my ability to be comfortable communicating with different types of people. And that's a good thing, because when God brings that up to us, he's also giving us the ability to change in that area and be a stronger representative of Christ. We are to offer spiritual care to all, and we respect the individual's right to decline the offer of assistance. When you're in the hospital, for example, there's a lot, you just don't have autonomy. And I was listening to a Christian chaplain talk, and they were talking about, well, how to understand, okay, you're not religious, you don't want this, but here's my information, and if you need any help, I'm there for you. Because, and you know, just let them understand that they have the right not to, even though to receive our benefit of our assistance, even though it may be in their better interest, because they don't often, when you're hospitalized, have a say about what happens to them. And it may be that you can help them with some kind of physical thing, and then also be able to give them some spiritual input. If requested, try to help put them in contact with a religious leader of their particular faith. We don't always understand all the different mores and cultural aspects that they are used to. So to be better effective, even though we know the best thing is to do things according to the Bible, we are not there to proselytize. This is not, chaplaincy is a backdoor ministry. We present the presence of God and help people, and as we develop relationships, that often opens up the door for us to share our faith. But we're not there to convert them to our religion, to our philosophical or moral or religious beliefs. Okay, so it's kind of grating sometimes if you're thinking that we're going to be saving the world. And Jesus, when he talked about go into all the world and preach the gospel, when he's saying make disciples, yes, that is the great commandment, and that is our overarching responsibility and call. But there's different ways and avenues of doing this. And based on the group that you're working with, you can be fired if it's a job, or removed from being able to reach out to anybody when you are overtly evangelizing. Okay, so if you're doing things on your own, or if in a Christian ministry, their requirements may be loosened in that respect. And one sister not too long ago talked about when she came on board, you know, that her understanding was that we never preach the gospel, and that is not the case. We can use the Word of God. It is respected as a philosophical belief, but it's based on where we are, and the organization determines the framework of how much freedom we have to communicate about faith in relationship to their problems and help. Okay, kind of like a therapist can't come out and tell you that, you know, this scripture about, you know, he'll keep you in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on thee. You know, they don't come out and say it unless the doors are opened, and based on where God opens the doors for you to go, it also is how you can determine how you determine how much freedom you have, and the parameters of talking about God and using the Bible outright in your ministry to the people, because this is a ministry. It is, even though some of it is very secular. When you're passing out food or providing community service information, you are conveying the love of God. Somebody might not have somebody just touch their hand and be kind to them, right? Depending on their circumstances. And we minister and they can tell, you know, how concerned we are, or if we're just trying to, you know, check off a box or put a Christian convert notch in our gun, right? So we don't want to be too stiff in our communication. We don't want to be too cold. We don't want to be too chatty. We don't want to be too casual or informal or too formal, but we need to be businesslike but warm. Okay, and we never use manipulation or force to affect change in their philosophical or religious beliefs, which we kind of mentioned that. Okay. We need to be careful to be sensitive, to convey their personal dignity and respect their personal integrity, and operate prayerfully, even though some of the things that you may be doing are just physical assistance or providing resources. We need to use prayer in the background in order to have the spiritual energy, the spiritual force needed to carry out the work as a representative of Christ. Okay. So I've had a couple of different experiences with people in the chaplaincy, and one person that took the course was a preacher, which makes it which their manner of dealing with people is slightly more authoritative and more telling and instructing, but nobody likes to be lectured to, right? We're cooperating with them and offering them. It's like, would you like this sandwich? Okay. We're not saying, here's this sandwich you need to eat. It's time to eat lunch. You got to eat this, right? This is what you need nourishment, and this is the vitamins and minerals that you're going to get from this. And we're not overly, we don't lecture, right? Another time a person was talking about all kinds of political, every class was something political, and talking about negatively about certain public figures, and we need to have our personal preferences. That needs to be out of the picture when we're dealing with people. We're not trying to rail on different political parties or public offices. Though that's not our place. We have our beliefs, we have our preferences, we have different ideas, but those things have to stay out of our dealings with the other people. Another person was talking very much about certain types of sin or whatever, and very expressing animosity about different types of people, but whether they're LGBTQ, RS, TUV, or whether they're an atheist or a humanist, or whether they're swearing, whether they're drug addicts, whatever. We have to remember they are individuals. We can throw everybody into a category. You are a hillbilly. You are Russian. You are gay. You're a drug addict, but you're homeless. But they may be any of those things, but they are people. And so I've talked a little bit at the beginning of the class about being uncomfortable with certain types of people or certain types of cultures, and it's a growing experience when we're dealing with different people that are different from us or from different backgrounds, and being able to not have something kind of grip us and make us hold back, to be able to reach out and extend the love of Christ. I mentioned this is different from ministry. So any type of comments? That's basically the first two sections.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, sure. You need to say something? Or was your internet connection kind of screwy there? Okay. So if there's nothing, no comments about that, then we're just going to go over just the basic steps now that the class is over. Okay. We have an application, and I was talking with Tolan the other day. Oh, I think he got disconnected there or getting out of the car. And so do Etta and the application is about 24 pages. Okay. So we had talked about printing it out, and he's not too far from me in meeting, and I can hand it to him. However, do you both have computers?
I do.
Okay. Because
And
go ahead.
I have a computer and printer.
Okay. Well, I'm not so much, instead of actually printing them out, what I was thinking, on your computer, do you have Microsoft Word?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not sure. Bridget can respond in a minute how we could do it, but what I can do, instead of actually mailing it to you, I can send you a Word file. I also have it in Publisher, right? But you can't, not everybody can get a document from the Publisher, but I do have it in Microsoft Word. So what I could do is email it to you, and on your computer, because it's easier to type out answers and fill it out, you could just answer the question on that same document and resave it and email it back to me, instead of mailing it and or having the paper copies. I think that came to me yesterday or today, and I was looking to see if I had it in Word document, because if you can open that up, it would be the easiest. There are lines in the after the questions to fill, like if you were writing, because this was made when we all write on stuff, and you would write on top of the lines like line paper, but what you could do is type in your answer and delete the lines, right? And save it and email it back to me. I think if you can do it, can you do that, Bridget?
Yes, you have. I have the
Microsoft Word?
Yeah.
Tolan, do you have Microsoft Word? You can just nod. Did you hear what I said about just doing it online and typing it out in the from a file emailed to you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have Microsoft Word.
So I think that would be the easiest instead of trying to print it out and write it and get it back to me. Do you agree?
I agree.
Because that way you're not using all the paper and the travel time to hand it out or the postage or whatever. And like I said, it's a 24-page thing. So, it makes it a lot easier for all of us to get it and be in a timely manner and in a efficient and cost-effective manner. So we have the application. I inherited this application from the founder and the subsequent leader. And so I have kind of updated it a little bit and tweaked it a little bit, but if I would appreciate your feedback about something that you don't understand, you don't think it's necessary to be in there, not pertinent to chaplaincy, or if there's something else you need to be included in that's not on there. I would like some feedback on that when you do get the application and fill it out. Okay, so there's the application. I would need a copy of your ID, which you can take a picture of and email it to me, or send it to my phone. If we're meeting people, we could just copy it and give it back to you. We need a recommendation from a minister, chaplain, or church leader. If you a recommendation from another source, friend, employer, if you're occupied in another ministry or whatever. If you are if you have a ministerial license or ordination and you want it to be considered on your certificate, we'll talk about if we rehearse what the different types of certificate, what you're serving under would be a community service chaplain. But if you have a ministerial license, you could receive it a slightly changed certificate that's as a licensed or ordained chaplain, depending on if you have ministerial license or ordination papers. So if you're going to do that, then I'd like a copy of that. There are different people that have done that. It said, I'm questionable about the resume because in the application, it has a lot of different information about employment and education. So maybe if it's informal about some of your, just 1 minute. I don't know if that's Bridget or Tolan, just a second. If some of your other qualifications or training, it might be a good idea to have a resume. I'm considering that this isn't quite necessary, but since you might be a good practice, Okay, to have the resume, what were you going to say? Was it Tolan that had his hand raised? Or
No, that was me.
it was Bridget? Go ahead, Bridget.
Yeah, I was asking about the copy of it. You said it would be a ordained chaplain because I do have my license. So you want me to send the license to your email?
Right, a copy of it, and
Yeah.
then instead of just a community service, then it would say licensed or ordained chaplain when you finish all the requirements, right?
So you want two recommendations? Is that correct? That's the next question.
Right.
It's from a plan or okay, so it's two. Okay,
And
thank you.
somebody that has some kind of ministerial supervision or relationship to you, a minister, chaplain, or a church leader. Okay. Then when you get your internship done and the application to me, then we will set an appointment to meet with our advisory board, which that's myself and two other individuals, and they just have an interview. And then at that point, probably if you've gotten to that point, we would give you your certificate at that particular time if we meet in person. Otherwise, I would send it to you. So there is a kind of a difficulty as though one of the members of the advisory board doesn't have internet. So I'm trying to figure out how to do an interview with this person and each one of you. So I'm working on that. Okay. I mentioned to Tolan the other day, we do a background check from iChat. We don't do the fingerprint one. If there is something that comes up on your background check, that doesn't mean that you cannot be a chaplain. What it does mean is based on the area where you have some type of a record can influence, it does influence where you would be able to minister, right? And so if you that just, it just makes sense if you had a problem not to put you in a situation where one, you would be vulnerable or hurt somebody. Not that you would, because we would presume that there has been restoration made, but for example, incarcerated youth will allow everybody who has anything show up on their record, be a chaplain and minister to the youth, except if you have a sexual or child abuse on your record, right? Which makes sense.
Trish, I got a question.
Sure, go ahead, Cohen.
In this bullet point that you got on your share screen, it says up-to-date personal resume. Is that of service you done in your community, or is just employment based?
Well, this is what I was saying to the ladies when I think you were reconnecting, that I think it's kind of a good idea for you to have for your application into an area of service, but the questions in the application cover all that,
Okay.
So it would be more of something of some skills that you would have. So it's kind of an optional thing if you feel that there's something not in the application, and it's a good exercise for you to have it and to be reviewed, to present for other areas of service. Because I guess, in some areas when you're applying to be a chaplain, it's almost like a job application. So for me personally, I'm questioning whether it's absolutely essential. I think it's an optional thing. Okay. Bridget, you have your hand up?
Yes. When do you need the letters of recommendation and the copies of the
We would need that by the time you would have your appointment with the advisory board.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not like you have to have it tomorrow because it's going to take you time to fill out the application.
Yeah.
So we need all of these things by the time we're going to set a meeting up with the advisors on our board. Unless there's some other questions, or you can always contact me. Go ahead, Bridget.
So yeah, I was just listening to what you were saying to Thomas. So you said the certificates are presented to you after you've done the internship, and
If
you
you
said
want
they
to
take-
get something to me before then, as you get it together, or if you want to give me everything at once, it's at your discretion. But I would want to know within 4 to 6 months where you are in the process.
Okay.
I mean, I
So
had
the certificates are given out after you finish the
internship, yes. And usually if we were meeting in person, I would, with the advisory board, I probably would have it right there with you. But if we're probably doing it online, then I would have to send it to you in the mail, or if we're close, drop it off. Etta, go ahead.
Yes, for the internship, is there, when I begin my internship, is there something to give to the chaplain there or the pastor so they can record the 40 hours, or how do I?
I don't have anything for that. Basically, if you have some type of documentation, like from Bridget, at where she's probably going to do it, there was like a thing like a time card, so that would show how many hours. When people have done it with IYM, incarcerated youth, they would just tell Bob Kirby, I'm at my 40 hours, and then I have a supervisory, the supervisors, a little questionnaire that I send them, and they fill it out and give it back to me when you finished your 40 hours. So it's basically you keeping track, or the organization or person keeping track of how many hours, how long it takes you to get that, and the days you do it.
Okay.
Hey, Trish, can I add something to that?
Absolutely.
Because I have ran into that same situation, and I was wondering how the hours would be tracked. And what I noticed is when I was seeking these different organizations where I can serve, they already had a volunteer program or document already set up where it specify how many hours, because they always get volunteers if you go that route.
Right.
Or then I had this one lady write a letter indicating my hours in it.
Right. I know Linda and Cindy had who got theirs like in December, had some other things outside of incarcerated youth, and the person wrote a letter and just said they did this and they're for this many hours.